Welcome to the Here's the Deal channel. Really important video for you because it unearths the mentality of a very popular YouTuber, and his name is Brandon Tatum. The other day, well, everybody pretty much knows it's a viral video that Will McNeil in Jacksonville, Florida was pulled over for not having his headlights on. He was brutalized by the Jacksonville Police Department. The sheriff came out and lied about it, lied about what happened, the fact that he says that it wasn't a sucker punch. Lackluster and a lot of other people did a video on it. And then Brandon Tatum got word that Lackluster did a video on it because in the video, Lackluster calls out Brandon Tatum as a bootlicker. So Brandon Tatum responds to the video by saying, doing a video called "I Was Wrong About William McNeil Jr. ? Before we get into this, though, I've done a couple of videos on Brandon Tatum so that you know who this guy is and what he thinks. And it's very important what we think, because usually what you think and what you believe is what you're going to do, which makes you a good person or a bad person. Voltaire said, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. This first clip I want to show you before we get into the Lackluster versus Brandon Tatum thing is what Brandon Tatum said about a guy who flipped him off for having a thin blue line flag, and what Brandon Tatum wanted to do to a guy who merely exercised his free speech to flip off that thin blue line flag. Check this out.
I almost had to put these hands on somebody at the grocery store. I almost had to throw the hands on homeboy at the grocery store. Now I almost had to put my hands on homeboy. I may have to put these hands on somebody, or I may have to, pull out the strap.
Pull out the strap. You know what that is? I almost had to put my hands on somebody who flipped off my thin blue line flag, and I got a little bit butthurt about it. So Brandon Tatum is an ex-officer for the Tucson Police Department in Arizona. He was a part of the SWAT team, and he still carries with him that fragile ego complex to the point where somebody can flip off his thin blue line flag and he's going to want to go hands on. He is a violent individual by his own admission, but we ain't even done yet.
But here's the deal.
That was the very beginning of my video. This is him explaining that situation in a little bit more detail to where he unearths even more of how cruddy of a person he is.
I almost had to put these hands on somebody at the grocery store. I almost had to throw the hands on homeboy at the grocery store. Now I almost had to put my hands on homeboy. I may have to put these hands on somebody, or I may have to, pull out the strap.
Now, many from Tatum's channel.
Let's see. This is where he was. Let me show you where he was describing what happened.
He, quote, got in his feelings.
Now I almost had to put my hands on homeboy. I'm not gonna lie, in my heart, when I saw him stick the middle finger up at that flag, I got in my feelings. I said, I could just go in there and dog this dude real quick, and it'll be over quick.
See, that's the problem with law enforcement officers. We know that they have this they have discretion that they could fall under. They could give you that ticket or not give you a ticket. They could break your car window or not break your car window. They could smash your door in at 2 o'clock in the morning, or they could not do that. So Brandon Tatum is admitting here he got into his feelings. He got so into his feelings that he wanted to put the hands on it, and he threatened that he could have pulled out his gun on him for merely expressing how this guy expressing how he felt about the thin blue line flag. I said I could just go in there and dog this dude real quick and it'll be over. And I'll put him on IG and y'all be seeing him there bleeding.
And I'll put him on IG and y'all see him there bleeding.
It was in this context of illogical, unreasonable, hurt feelings that Tatum, in his own mind, felt that he had to, quote, almost go hands-on. So Tatum had violence in his mind to such an extent that he said to himself that he could just go in there and dog this guy or beat him up and then put him on Instagram bleeding. And yet Tatum said, I made stuff up.
I respect somebody if you disagree with me and you like.
This is him talking about me, because I sent him a message saying, dude, you were being completely dishonest about this, because his thumbnail literally said leftists tried to fight me And then somebody else gave him a super chat and said, did that leftist really try to fight you? And he admitted, no, he didn't really try to fight me. So this guy is not only ego bruised, not only is he walking around with a fragile ego and violence in his heart, he's also making stuff up. What is that symptomatic of? That's symptomatic of being a law enforcement. He's a trained law enforcement officer. What are they trained to do? First and foremost, to lie and engage in deception so they can build a case against you. Every word you say to a law enforcement officer will not go for you. It will go against you. So wait, there's more.
Like, this is the point where I think that he's wrong, and here's why. Not that you got to make a whole video to make up.
He's talking about me.
Stuff.
To make up stuff.
He said I was making stuff up. And one of the things that I said in that video, and I'll put the links in the description below this video right here, but one of the things I said was he claimed that the leftists wanted to fight him, but then he claimed within his video that he didn't really want to fight me. But Brandon wanted to fight him, so for simply expressing his freedom of speech.
Guys, just show me one thing that I made up here. Everything comes straight from what he said. And
all right, so let me just show you this right here. This is from a video. Do you remember this cop right here? His name is Brian Fowle from Rancho Cordova Police Department. He actually got fired for pummeling this kid. What did the kid do wrong? Did he commit a crime? Did he damage properties? Was he being a nuisance to his neighborhood? No, he was buying tobacco products. Kid's 14 years old. Look at his little skinny twig arms. And Brian Fowler from the Rancho Cordova Police Department thought it would be a good idea to get him on the ground, put all of his weight on him. The man weighs well over 215, 220 pounds, and just punching him right here in the sternum. And that's what to this day, this is why I call Brian Tatum, Brian Soften Him Up Tatum. Brian Tatum calls it soften him up. You and I, because we're normal, call it child abuse. If any of us saw a parent, let alone a cop, but a parent on their own property pummeling their kid, we would do something to get that guy off of him, because that guy is committing a crime against that weak little kid. Here's what Brian Tatum says.
Curbside justice.
He calls it curbside justice. This is all in the context of Officer Fowle straddling a kid and beating him to a pulp.
It doesn't work. You will lose every time. And that's my personal experience, because every time somebody wanted to do courtside justice with B. Tatum, they lost miserably. And at some point, the cop had to soften him up a little bit, hit him in this area right here to end up getting control while he wait for his backup. You ask me, I have no problem with that.
So basically, I got no problem with child abuse in broad daylight.
You ask me,
because it's done by a cop.
I have no problem with that. They lost miserably.
But here's the deal.
Okay, so that was the beginning of one of my other videos. Now, what's interesting about this is I made this YouTube short a year or two ago where Brandon Tatum is talking about Benjamin Crump, who is he's the famous civil rights attorney who won a massive settlement for the George Floyd family, $27 million, won $12 million for the Breonna Taylor family from Louisville, Kentucky. But listen to what Brandon Tatum says about the attorneys, the kind of attorneys who should represent law enforcement so that they can have a fair shake. Former Officer Brandon Tatum unwittingly admits that he wants a criminal, corrupt defense attorney defending police.
Police officers need a Benjamin Crump for police officers. That when police officers get into something like this, they can have a voice.
But what kind of person does Brandon Tatum think Benjamin Crump is?
And of course, the criminal, I can't stand him. I'm trying to find an adjective to describe him. Benjamin Crump, who's an ambulance chaser. He's only involved with cases if you're going to make him money. If your son get killed today unjustifiably by anybody other than a police officer, Benjamin Crump will not show up to support you. You know, Benjamin Crump is one of the crookedest lawyers, in my personal opinion, only taking cases where he's going to make a lucrative paycheck on.
So according to Brandon Tatum, Benjamin Crump is crooked, criminal, corrupt, and money grubbing, but that's the kind of defense attorney that police need to defend them in court. Says pretty much everything you need to know about the mentality of law enforcement today. So that's who Brandon Tatum says should defend law enforcement so they can get a fair shake. But let me show you this also. Brandon Tatum equates popularity with being right. This is him calling out a YouTube channel called The Amazing Lucas, equating being right with the many and being wrong with a few followers.
Amazing Lucas.
We're stringing along this stuff right here so that you can understand the kind of character we're dealing with before we get into him trying to slam Lackluster for his commentary on the Will McNeil case.
Right. Look at Amazing Lucas' channel and look at my channel. You tell me who's right. Amazing Lucas used to have 100,000 more subscribers than me. And that fool then went off the deep end somewhere. And now he has minimal subscribers. And he makes his living talking about Brandon Tatum.
So basically he says, look at the numbers and tell me who's right. So for him, numbers make right. And as a former police officer, might makes right. And isn't that really the MO of government and any kind of government functionary, including law enforcement, is that they believe if they have the might, then they are in the right. This right here is, this is Brandon Tatum talking about just comply in the context of Tyre Nichols. If you know anything about Tyre Nichols, the Memphis jump out crew murdered him in cold blood, and Tyre Nichols had done absolutely nothing wrong.
And the young man here can save his life by just listening to what they say. This ain't a courtroom. Y'all could get this crackhead. Well, not a crackhead. He kind of looked like a crackhead. I don't know if he's
called Tyre Nichols a crackhead.
Crack. You go to fighting, you go to resisting, you go to running, you're going to necessitate a response of a use of force. Kids, children that are out there, learn from these police officers. Citizens, if you ride in the car, you get pulled over. When they tell you to do something, you do it. It's really not that hard. Do you want to live or do you not want to live? Because the cops going to prison ain't got nothing to do with your life. He dead now. Whether they get indicted or not, he's dead. You don't need to die to try to make a point. If an officer pull you over and tell you get out the car, put your hands behind your back, you do as the officer told you to do. Most of the
so comply.
time, and this is my training and experience, when you obey the police officers, we done real fast.
Done real fast. We'll tell that to Daniel Shaver. Tell that to Tyre Nichols. Tell that to Philando Castile or James Boyd. All this right here, this of all the things that Brandon Tatum spews, this one right here takes the cake. This is what he thinks about you and me and anybody else who would question his commentary on the Uvalde cops. You and I say the Uvalde cops were cowards because 376 of them from 5 different departments showed up and stood around for 77 minutes while a madman, an armed madman was picking off kids in a classroom. The door was unlocked. So here's what Brandon Tatum says about anybody who would criticize him, saying that the Uvalde cops are not cowards.
People cowards, you don't know what happened. Get off my page. You think I care?
Here, let me slow this down. I was listening at double the speed.
I do not care. Unsubscribe. Go F yourself. I could care less. You think you hurt my feelings because I'm gonna unsubscribe. Were you there? No, I wasn't there. I just did. Do you know anybody that was there? Can you verify or disagree with what I said on this chart? Oh no, I don't know. It's my feeling. Your feelings don't matter. Do me a favor. Unsubscribe. And you don't need to announce on your way out. Just let the dough hit you behind. And I guarantee you there's not a single person that's saying, I'm gonna unsubscribe like I care. I'm gonna unsubscribe to you that have ever put on that uniform. Not one. Unsubscribe.
You just don't understand if you don't put on the uniform. He's gonna later say, if you never put on the uniform, you're a coward. I contend that if you put on the uniform, you're a coward.
Please, how many of y'all, please, make my day. Make my day. Unsubscribe. Please.
He's so hurt that people are unsubscribing from him because he made the call that the Uvalde cops are not cowards. They were being strategic.
Please unsubscribe. I am welcoming you. I'm gonna throw a party of all you cowards that don't know what you're talking about, but you're the first ones to have something to say. And thank y'all for the people who unsubscribe. I really appreciate it. Please unsubscribe. You'll make my day. Please unsubscribe. Yeah, you make my freaking day. And thank y'all for unsubscribing. I appreciate you. If you ask me, I'm the fairest person on the internet with Uvalde. I'm the fairest one. And nobody should be able to, disagree with me unless you just want to disagree for the sake of disagreeing.
What you're about to see is if you back the 376 Uvalde police officers who did absolutely nothing when they could have, well, they had to wait for they had to get equipment so they could pry the door open. The door was unlocked, Brandon. But there were kids screaming inside. There were 911 calls. They knew that there were alive kids still in there, and they did nothing, Brandon. And my hidden reason for playing all of this right here that I'm going to divulge right now is one of the things that Lackluster called Brandon Tatum in his video, which is right here, was a bootlicker. I would say that if you're saying it's okay to do child abuse, soften them up. If you're saying that the 376 Uvalde cops were not cowards, there were parents walking in with no Kevlar vest on, no shield, no academy training, no firearm, getting their kids. But the Uvalde cops couldn't get their heads out of their asses while they're sitting there texting in the hallway, laughing, joking, doing nothing. They even stopped one of the guys whose wife was a teacher that was in the classroom, and he stopped. Can you imagine having a loved one in there and listening to your buddies and standing down? So I think it's appropriate for somebody to be called a bootlicker if you're going to support the Uvalde Police Department. If you think it's okay for a cop to straddle a kid and beat the stew out of him, if you think that Benjamin Crump is a criminal and that's the kind of guy that needs to be supporting and defending our police officers, I would say bootlicker is probably going too light on you, Brandon. So let's go ahead and get into this video and see what his exact objection is to Lackluster's commentary on the William McNeil case.
Tatum thinks that the officers used a proportionate amount of force for the situation because he's a bootlicking moron.
If you don't know what you're talking about, don't make a video about.
He's a bootlicking. That's called not pulling punches, Brandon. That's calling a spade, Brandon.
Brandon Tatum. That's it. To make a video calling me a bootlicker and all kind of other stuff when you have no idea what you're talking about according to the law. You have no idea what you're talking about according to police interactions. You have no idea what you're talking about according to what you claim that I said and the positions that you said I took and didn't take.
Hold the phone. Brandon Tatum's all up in his feels.
Listen, y'all, the system isn't broken, it's rigged. And if you're buried in debt, that's exactly how
it's like we got it. Okay, here we go.
Sent me a video last night and said, hey man, this guy's com/Tatum. That's pdsdebt.com/Tatum last night and said, hey man, this guy's talking real crazy.
I'm not going to start over. His friend sent him a video
about you, man. It's crazy. He's saying all these negative things about you. And I said, let me check out the video. And this is regarding the police incident that occurred in February that we just now hearing of it because the guy is a grifter and he want to make money off of police interaction and not because he really cared that he was done wrong by police, in my opinion.
That's quite an assumption.
So I'd never heard of this guy before.
So Tyre Nichols, according to Brandon Tatum, is a crackhead, and Will McNeil is a grifter.
I don't even know the name of his social media thing. It's Lackluster, I think is what it's called, which is pretty ironic because I'm getting ready to debunk this gentleman every step of the way on this.
You're going to tell me Brandon Tatum, who's been online for years and years, has never heard of Lackluster? I think he's an actor. I think Brandon Tatum knows full well who Lackluster is, and because he's in the law enforcement profession and he has buddies that are part of the Thin Blue Line and he's a Thin Blue Line backer, are you going to tell me that of all the cop videos this guy has seen, he hasn't seen or heard of Lackluster?
This is the easiest debunking that I'm ever going to do probably in my life. If you don't know what you're talking about, don't make a video about Brandon Tatum. That's it. Put your biases aside, put your anti-police rhetoric aside, do some research before you decide to make a video calling me a bootlicker and all kind of other stuff when you have no idea what you're talking about according to the law. You have no idea what you're talking about according to police interactions. You have no idea what you're talking about according to what you claimed that I said and the positions that you said I took and didn't take. Ladies and gentlemen.
What about morality? See, it's all about cops. It's all about the military for him. It's all about the law. What about morality? What about the moral code? What about doing what is right?
Gentlemen, get this guy on the show. I'm going to debunk him every step of the way. Roll the clip.
Welcome back to the Lackluster channel. Today's video is a response to the one I made yesterday. I released that video with the information that I had at the time, and since that video, the sheriff has released the body cam footage and has made a statement. Apparently, there's a police report out as well.
The cell phone camera footage that began viral circulation over the weekend does not comprehensively capture the circumstances surrounding this incident. Tonight, I'm sharing the footage from the body-worn cameras of the arresting officer, Officer D. Bowers, and two of the assisting officers, Officer D. Miller and Officer G. Curse.
We'll include some of that and review some of what Officer Brandon Tatum says on his Substack. Most of you know who he is and know that he can make some ridiculous claims.
Okay.
And in this case, it is no different. First, he claims that the full body cam has been released.
And that's why I wanted to start my video out, you knowing full well, seeing some of the clips. And these are just a few of the many clips that we could play on who Brandon Tatum really is and what he believes. This is his entire mentality. This is his brand. This is what he was when he was a cop. This is who he is now being an ex-cop.
While most of the relevant footage has been posted, we have only been granted the opportunity to view the incident from a few angles that the sheriff's office decided to show.
The currently available information and play the relevant body-worn camera.
Second,
Current relevant body-worn camera. That doesn't mean that they pick and choose and show you this angle and cut this angle. It's relevant, meaning the body.
That's exactly what cops do. They do it all the time. They redact things. When a cop mutes his body camera, he's doing it because he doesn't want to be transparent. He doesn't want you to hear what he said to his buddies. When it goes back to the station and they redact this other kind of thing, stuff, or they withhold the body camera footage for months or years and years because they don't want you to see what actually happened, because what actually happened cast them in a very bad light. But here's Brandon Tatum offering deference to the thin blue line, as though they don't lie. They're completely transparent. They give the public exactly what the public needs to see.
Body-worn camera that's released that shows the incident at hand. That means that if you were involved in this incident, the body-worn camera was shown. If you had no involvement in this incident, there's no need to show the body-worn camera during a press conference. The first lie he made, roll it.
Tatum puts in bold lettering that
That was totally not a lie, by the way.
JSO was justified in the force used against McNeil. He follows this statement by claiming that only the palm strike was being reviewed to determine whether it was in policy, and fails to mention the several other punches inflicted to McNeil despite agreeing to exit the vehicle.
Step out now. All right.
And placing his hands behind his back.
Behind your back. I'm resisting behind your back.
Within his defense of
Now that Brandon Tatum can watch that video and not object to those body punches when the man is on the ground and surrounded by multiple officers is off the charts insane to me.
complete dog shit. He claims that nothing was criminal in the officer's actions. And sure, the DA hasn't filed criminal charges. But we
Stop right
expect-
there. The DA, the state district attorney's office, deemed, according to the chief, that there was no criminal action conducted by the law enforcement officers on scene, who watched the amateur video from the suspect and also watched the body-worn camera footage and all relevant footage that's made available. And they decided that there was no criminal activity. They decided there was no criminality, not Brandon Tatum. The state prosecutor said that it was no criminality. Now, when you can't, now if the state prosecutor said that there was criminality and the officers were wrong, Buddy over here would have said accepted it. But guess what he says about the prosecutor now that the prosecutor don't agree with him? Roll the clip.
the government to protect itself.
Oh,
The
it protects
DA
itself.
is
The prosecutor of any state or county is basically that county or that state's top cop. Remember when they called Kamala Harris when she was the prosecuting attorney for the chief prosecutor in California? She was the top cop. So what you have here is Brandon Tatum says the top cop said it was law, therefore it's law. How many? But let's say it really was within the framework of the law, which it's not. We're going to go over that in a second. But let's say it was within the framework of the law. How does that give another human being the justification to steamroll over basic human morality, break the guy's window, knock his clock, sucker punch him, take him down, and take him to jail for a headlight violation? Who cares what laws there are? You know why we think the Nazis are bad for doing the Nazis checkpoint, and why people make fun of show me your papers? Because the guys who were asking for the papers, the guys who were following the Nazi laws, the guys who were just doing what they were told and following the policies, and the prosecutor that was probably, let's say there's a prosecuting attorney for the Nazi regime, and they said, oh yeah, what they did was completely within the framework of the law. The guys who were following the laws and consenting to the laws and making excuses for laws were the bad guys.
Often referred to as the county's top cop. No charges does not mean no criminal activity. Tatum correctly
Amen. No charges does not mean no criminal activity. Amen.
states that the law gives officers discretion to use reasonable force during arrests, but incorrectly adds that that's what we saw in the video.
Time out. How is what I'm saying incorrect when the state prosecutor agrees with what I'm saying, and also the police chief agrees with what I'm saying? That they're
Here's how, Brandon, because what you're agreeing with and what the attorney's agreeing with and what the prosecutor's agreeing with is utterly, demonstrably immoral. That's how you're wrong. See, we're living in two different worlds, coming at this from two different angles because people have different perceptions. They actually believe the law equals morality. And if you disobey the law, then you are being immoral. And if you're being immoral, disobeying unjust laws, tyrannical laws, then you deserve the trouble that is going to come into your life.
there's no criminality afoot. He mentioned that he will continue the investigation of whether or not it was in department policy, which I wrote in my op-ed that he's referring to. But of course, he don't want to show that part because he's trying to make his own point, which is ridiculous. Roll it.
Before we watch the videos, let's discuss what reasonable force is and when officers are lawfully allowed to use it. We can start with the first body cam of the deputy that initiated the stop and compare it to Tatum's assertions. He claims that McNeil's headlights were not on and that he was not wearing a seatbelt. But the suspended license and having marijuana are facts that were only revealed as a result of an unlawful traffic stop conducted by JSO. The probable cause.
Point. None of that is relevant. What I articulated in my op-ed is all of the circumstances surrounding his detention, arrest, and his resistance. So I don't have to separate the two when I'm talking about the totality of circumstances.
You kind of do, because it has to be at least a lawful traffic stop. And we're going to find out that it wasn't lawful at all, according to the words of their own 316 dot whatever statute.
All of those things he was found guilty of.
Wait till you hear what Brandon Tatum says about the knife on the floorboard.
And then also, it does matter if a person is driving a suspended driver's license and they do have drugs on that person. Because what? It explains why he was resisting arrest and acting a fool. It's not because he didn't understand the law. It was because he didn't want to go to jail. Therefore, you can paint the whole
That could be true. That could be true.
picture in totality of circumstances. Roll it.
As is stated by the deputy, was that his headlights weren't on. But again, the law states during any rain, smoke, or fog.
That is the key, and we're going to come back to it. Listen to what Brandon Tatum says about this. During any rain, smoke, or fog, not after, not inclement weather, during any rain, smoke, or fog. It doesn't matter that there's raindrops on the car. Was he pulled over during rain, smoke, or fog?
Time out. Inclement weather, rain, smoke, fog. It also talks about sun.
The statute says absolutely nothing about inclement weather. I got it pulled up right here. You can read the entire thing. It's 316.217 when lighted lamps are required. There's not one word. You can even do a word search on this page right here. There's nothing that indicates anything about inclement weather. It only says during any rain, smoke, or fog. But Brandon Tatum is also going to say, well, you got to understand the spirit of the law.
Rise, sunset. There's reasons that you have to have your lights illuminated. He did not have his lights on. He did not deny that his lights were not on. He did not skirt these charges when he went to court. Now, they decided to keep him on the bigger charges and dismiss the other ones because the other ones were criminal. So you don't try to charge him with both. But he still was found responsible. He did deny responsibility. No one has said that the officers were wrong on the initial traffic stop.
Well, they should be saying it because he wasn't pulled over during rain, smoke, or fog. During.
Why? Because I'm going to prove to you that this is inclement weather and it was raining. All right, Nick, let's get.
This is inclement weather and it was raining. Was raining is not during raining. Inclement weather is not found in 316.217. What is it? 316.217? Yeah, 316.217.
Get the exhibit ready because you're going to hear this guy talk about it. You see people say it online. It's the most asinine and ridiculous claim. It's because they hate police and they always want the police to be wrong. So they will make up anything. It wasn't.
Now, this may be true for some people, but hatred of police is not the issue here. You know what really is the issue? And this is the main reason why we're doing this video right here. because those who can make you believe absurdities can also make you commit atrocities. And this isn't about hating cops or thinking cops are bad or whatever. It's what do moral human beings do? Whether you're wearing a black robe, whether you've got a doctor's uniform on, whether you've got a law enforcement uniform on, what do good people do? What do good people not do? Well, one thing that good people do not do is they don't brutalize them when the person they're brutalizing hasn't harmed another person or threatened them or stolen or damaged their property. They don't do that. Cops do, though. So the problem that I have is cops are not being moral human beings when they're acting in their cop capacity. And even when they're not in their cop capacity, they exhibit the same mentality like Brandon Tatum is exhibiting right here. It's not about whether you like cops or not like cops. Cops are actually using the law to violate every principle, every moral principle of humanity.
Raining. Look at this video. This is fresh rain droplets still hanging onto his vehicle. If somehow it wasn't inclement weather, which means it wasn't raining at all, you wouldn't still see rain droplets on his car.
Do you get it? Do you get where we're going with this, or where he's going with this? Doesn't say anything in this policy about rain droplets. Doesn't say anything about after or before rain or smoke or fog. It says during. If Benjamin Crump can demonstrate that Will McNeil wasn't pulled over during the rain for a headlight violation, he can demonstrate that he was stopped unlawfully, not even according to statute. And Brandon Tatum, I don't know if it's intentional, but he looks like he refuses to see this simple fact.
Inclement weather doesn't mean that it's only inclement at the instant that it's raining. And then if it stopped raining for 30 minutes.
It literally, first of all, inclement weather's not in there. And it literally says during. You can only pull them over during rain, smoke, or fog. I'm just telling you what the statute says. So the cops violated their own statutes and they have nothing to stand on. I'm not advocating the statute. I'm not advocating that there should be a headlight law, but there is a headlight law. And Brandon Tatum is trying to skirt his way out of the fact that it says during.
30 seconds, then all of a sudden it's not inclement anymore. It's not just the rain. It's
he's saying a word that's not in the statute. Inclement is not in there.
Rain and rainy conditions. That's what the hazardous lights.
Doesn't say rainy conditions. Doesn't say rainy or rainy conditions. It says during rain, smoke, or fog.
And putting your lights on is for the conditions that's associated with rain. When it rains, visibility is lower. There's rain on the streets. People need to have better visibility when driving. That's what the spirit of the law says. That's why no one contested that he was pulled over.
That's what the spirit of the law says, Your Honor. I contend that the legislators, if they had a little bit more time, would have hammered out exactly what I'm saying. But you got to understand the gist. You got to understand the spirit of the law. Spirit of the law according to who? Spirit of the law according to Brandon Tatum, of course. No, that's not what the law says. That's not what the statute says.
Rightfully, you would not have rain droplets on your car if it had not been raining.
What if he had rain droplets on his car because he just got out of the car wash? You telling me that you can't have rain droplets on your car like 30, depending on the weather conditions, 30, 45 minutes after a rain? Because you can only be pulled over not after a rain, not when it looks like you've been through a rainstorm. You can only be pulled over during rain, smoke, or fog.
Ground is wet. It is raining, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe it stopped raining for a small period of time.
Maybe it stopped raining during that period of time, you can't be pulled over.
Does not preclude the justification of having your lights on during inclement weather.
It totally precludes it because it doesn't mention inclement weather. This guy is so far out on a limb.
All right, let's go back to the video.
Of which were present. And as to the claims of not wearing a seatbelt, the officer transmits over the radio that he didn't have any details about the occupant or occupants of the vehicle.
Hold on.
Prior to
Having any details about the occupant or occupant's vehicle has nothing to do with visible observation of a seatbelt in a traffic light or not having your lights on.
And we know that cops would never lie about whether you wore a seatbelt or not, right? Do you remember that that video that went viral because of Audit the Audit? The woman whose husband worked for a car dealership, and she was taking one of the cars out, and she happened to have a rear, front, and cab-facing dash cam. She clearly had her seatbelt on, and the motorcycle cop pulled her over for not wearing a seatbelt. And she's like, "I swear I was wearing a seatbelt. You can see it. It's all on video." So yeah, Brandon is giving the benefit of the doubt to the Thin Blue Line gang members who are trained to lie and engage in deceptive practices to get you on something so that they can increase revenue for their coffers.
Not having, I guess, information about the people in the car means that I didn't get his driver's license. I didn't talk to him. I'm not sure if there's other people in the car. It's not that I didn't see him driving with no headlights on and no seatbelt before I pulled him over. Just for reference, he got pulled over. This is the result of him getting pulled over. This is where he stopped. The cop observed his lights not being on and observed him not having a seatbelt on. So he conducted a traffic stop. He pulled here and stopped. What are we saying? The cop is pulling him over because of his observations of the no seatbelt, in which the suspect never denied.
He's assuming that the cop is telling the truth. And it doesn't matter if the suspect denied it or not.
McNeil opening his door.
Yeah, Florida 24 Bravo, Echo Charlie Whiskey on a silver Kia. I know about this.
These two facts eliminate all probable cause for the entire stop, which means everything that occurs after this moment was unlawful.
Hold on.
And only
It's a lie.
That is absolutely true. Oh my gosh, this guy's living. Brandon Tatum is in a different world, man.
I just disproved that. I just proved
No, he totally didn't disprove that. He refuses to go by the law. This guy this is another problem. We have it's bad enough that we have deprivation of rights under color of law and conspiracy against rights and all these things that cops do in the name of the law, but they also won't even follow their own law. They'll do extra legal things to get you on something. They'll lie. They'll pull you over saying it was for this when my license plate was perfectly illuminated. What are you talking about? My headlights weren't on because it wasn't raining. It wasn't during rain. What are you talking about? But here's Brandon Tatum going, no matter what, the police officers are right.
inclement weather, which the court agrees with me on, and everybody with a brainstem does. And then I just proved that the seatbelt violation, the officer observed seatbelt violation.
He proved it by saying, I believe the officer.
He was charged with all these things, and he did not deny any of these claims. He only denied that, well, it's not raining. That's not the totality of the inclement weather statute. But when he said you didn't have a seatbelt on, he didn't deny the seatbelt violation not one time. And then there's people that's going to say, well, they pulled the seatbelt off of him when he got out of the car. Yeah, because when he shut the door and was getting crazy and pulling his camera up, he put his seatbelt on. That's what he did. So he could say, look, I had my seatbelt on, but you didn't have your seatbelt on when you got pulled over. Roll the clip.
Only occurred because the deputies on scene were untrained as to their profession. But even worse still is that the responding officer was not wearing a seatbelt, and several of the other backup units also failed to use their headlights. It's a good thing that.
Time out. You can't.
Okay, now guess what he's going to say. Guess what he's going to say. The cops can do that. They are exempt. They're exempt from the laws that they stick you on. They're exempt from doing the things that they're going to economically terrorize you for.
This up. The responding officer wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Well, police officers, anybody that know anything about policing, when you pull up to a traffic stop, many cops, when they hit the lights or whatever, they take their seatbelt off. Police officers are exempt from traffic violation laws in certain circumstances. Why would an officer pull his seatbelt off while he's conducting a traffic stop? Because if suspect number one takes off running, you can get out of the car and react. If suspect number one pulls a gun on you, you can maneuver and react. Cops do not have to wear a seatbelt when conducting a traffic stop if they believe or deem that it is reasonable to take the seatbelt off for all these various reasons that I mentioned. And then when we talk about headlights, the lights and sirens control the lights of the vehicle. They control the lights of the vehicle. So when you turn your lights on, it takes over headlights, upper lights, and all kinds of lights.
So you're going to tell me that when it's nighttime and you activate your cherries and berries, it's going to turn your headlights off? This guy is reaching and reaching deep. And I agree with William based on what Brandon Tatum has let us know about what's swimming around in his own heart. I used to like Tatum. I noticed his bias, which equals dishonest. Look at the bootlicker show his cop authority. If Brandon could get away with it, he would go beat the S out of Lackluster. See the hatred. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because Brandon Tatum wanted to beat up and pull a gun on somebody who just flipped him off for having a thin blue line flag. That's how dangerous this guy is.
Also, officers are not obligated, depending on the circumstances, to follow traffic laws. They have to drive with due regard, and they have all of these exemptions that you can find right in the law. You can look it up yourself, or you want me to?
It's in the law. They're exempt, but you're not. We're going to get you, but they can do whatever they want. This is all Brandon is doing in this video, this commentary video on Lackluster's video, is solidifying the fact that he is the very thing that Lackluster said he was, i.e., a bootlicker and a moron.
Give you the chapter and verse, I can, but officers are not obligated to abide by all the traffic laws, especially when they're responding code 3, responding to an incident. That's why you can see a police officer sitting on the side.
Code 3, that's another thing. Why would you run code 3 for a guy who supposedly didn't have his headlights on when he should have? You don't. It doesn't make any sense to put everybody else, because if speeding is a factor and speeding puts lives at risk, that's what troopers tell us, right? The reason we're pulling you over, the reason we have speed limits, the reason we have traffic enforcement is to keep everybody on the roadway safe. We don't want you out there driving crazy, except cops can drive crazy when there's no emergency, because I don't care who you are or what state your brainstem is, which I heard somebody say they got their brainstem knocked out last time they got pulled over by the cops. I don't care what mental shape you're in. You don't put lives at risk and run code 3 for a non-emergency. And if there was ever a non-emergency, not having your headlights on would be in that category.
Side of the road with no lights on. That's why a police officer can respond to the scene and go past the speed limit. If the officers had to abide by every traffic law, then they'll be in trouble right now because they were speeding to get to this thing. If a person decides to drive off from a police officer, they can't pursue because then they'll be breaking the law of going over the speed limit. There's exemptions from officers in the law, depending on the circumstances, and these circumstances don't necessitate police officers to follow every traffic law.
Oh, God.
It wasn't unlawful to do so, but let's pretend that it was. And by refusing to identify here, McNeil was breaking the law.
Yes, sir. Is there a reason why you're popping the door open like that? I don't have a window that works. Is there a reason that you're pulling me over? Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why I'm pulling you over. For one thing, inclement weather, you don't have your lights on. Two things, you're not wearing your seatbelt. It's daylight. I don't need the lights. It's not raining.
It's daylights. I don't need the lights, and it's not raining. That's not. He's wrong, right?
He's absolutely right. Let's listen to it again.
It's not raining. Inclement weather, you don't have your lights on. Two things, you're not wearing your seatbelt. It's daylight. I don't need the lights. It's not raining.
It's daylight. I don't need the lights, and it's not raining.
Daylights. I don't need the lights, and it's not raining. That's
so. Did you hear what the cop said? Did you hear what Bauer said? He said inclement weather. Bauer's wrong. It doesn't say anything in the code. Look at it. About headlights. You're going to tell me that Will McNeil knew more about the law enforcer's law than the law enforcer, and more than Brandon Tatum? All Brandon Tatum is doing right here is regurgitating what Bauer said, inclement weather. And if we find out, I don't think we'll ever be able to find out, but I wonder if Brandon Tatum even looked at this law before he spewed what he did. Because he's just making stuff up.
He's wrong, right? Daylight is not the parameters here. And then you can see rain droplets on his car. So while he was driving, it is raining. So none of that's a moot point. Roll.
While he is driving, it is raining as the pavement is dry. Look at the pavement right here. Pavement dry. He's got some raindrops on here, but it is not raining. So he was pulled over not during rain.
It's not raining. It's not raining. Okay, I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you why I'm pulling you over. Give me your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance. No, call your supervisor. Why? Excuse me? Call your supervisor. Why did you pull me over? 35. I've already told you. Why did you pull me over? Step out of the vehicle. No, step out of the vehicle.
Specifically, this would be resisting, obstructing, and delay in Florida, as they do not have a refusal to ID law. Next, Tatum thinks that the officers used a proportionate amount of force for the situation, because he's a bootlicking moron.
The law requires that a person...
You got to stop and just appreciate the punctuation mark that Lackluster put on that, because it is so true. I usually don't go around calling names like that, but when the shoe fits, you got to wear it, Brandon.
Comply with the police officer's commands during a traffic stop.
To understand why, let's look at the law that Tatum fails to explain in his obvious GPT article.
Here we go.
Reasonable force is determined by two cases, Graham v. Connor and
Obvious
Tennessee v.
GPT.
Garner. Together, they've created use of force guidelines for law enforcement.
Okay.
First, the court must judge the officers based on the Fourth Amendment's objective reasonableness test. This requires officers to base their use of force on the totality of the facts and circumstances. Here, the entire case for the deputies fails immediately due to the insufficient probable cause.
Hold on. The
Yep.
state attorney's office deemed that they followed the law, and there was no.
He's basically saying the state attorney said this, the prosecutor said this, the law enforcer said this, and all of them are absolutely right because they are who they are, and I'm the bootlicker that I am. They are wrong. They're wrong according to their own code. There was no reason to stop this guy when it wasn't during rain, smoke, or fog.
Nothing criminal in their use of force. Where is this guy getting his theology from? This is not something that hasn't been litigated yet. This is not a brand new occurrence. This happened in February. He brought his complaint like a couple of days ago or whatever when he released this video. This was investigated internally, investigated from the state's attorney's office, and they deemed that there is nothing there. Now you could.
They deemed there was nothing. Well, I guess we should have their jobs because we all saw something different than they did. They're either willfully blind or they are absolutely idiotic and moronic.
Say Graham versus Connor and the use of force case law, but none of that applies here clearly because they were all deemed to be acting according to the law within reason.
Wow.
Echo Charlie Whiskey on a silver Kia. I don't like this.
But if the vehicle extraction was lawful, the amount of force used must take into consideration the severity of the crime, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat, and whether they were actively resisting or attempting to flee. By now, you may have heard that McNeil had a knife, but who the fuck doesn't? It was never in his hand, and upon review of the video, he never even reached for it, despite
Hold
the...
on.
Okay, now, there's nothing that I can say that will prepare you for what Brandon Tatum is about to say about this knife.
Like this is the thing that people don't think about with him. He has a big serrated knife that's probably 12 inches long on his floorboard. Who rides around with a knife like this? It's not reasonable to have a knife like this. People in the comment section or anybody watching this, how many of y'all drive around with a hunting knife this big laying on your floorboard? Nobody carries a knife like this. Does that mean he can't? But that also speaks to his character and speaks to the danger that was present when they.
It speaks to his character about the kind of knife he has on his floorboard. How does that guys, I am telling you, this commentary on Lackluster's video by Brandon Tatum is solid gold. Because if you ever had a question in your mind about the mental gymnastics that a cop does to justify his desire to initiate violence on the rest of us, this guy encapsulates that. When I initially listened to this earlier today in preparation for this video, I had to just pause it and just stand there and look at the sky and go, this guy really is a tyrant. I mean, I knew he was a tyrant before, but he's going off about a knife. Correlating the kind of knife somebody has with their character. I mean, what kind of corrupt, horrible human being do you have to be with he initially said 12 foot, but he stopped himself, 12-inch serrated knife. Like I've said before, I don't care if it's an anti-tank missile. There's nothing in the Second Amendment that says you can't have certain things. It says you got the right to keep and bear arms. It doesn't say what kind of arms you can bear. And I would say a serrated knife is kind of low on the totem pole compared to what you could have had. But no matter what you did have, it doesn't correlate to your character. This is how this guy thinks. And it's not just him. He represents a law enforcement mentality, a general law enforcement thought pattern that views you as the suspect, as the enemy, as the subject that we can use the law to violate.
We're conducting a traffic stop. Who knows? He probably wanted to pick it up and stab the officers, but he didn't have the courage to do it. You don't know.
Wow, man.
But this is a dangerous, deadly weapon that he has right.
So the guys who were being violent and actually carried out the violent acts are the ones that get to go away scot-free, according to Brandon Tatum. But the guy who was perfectly within his right to defend a gang of attackers has a corrupt character.
Under his on the floorboard. And if you watch what he's doing, he's not cooperating for a large majority of the video that he did not play. All the times when he shut the door and the cop was like, "You're under arrest, get out the car, get out the car." Who knows? He could have pulled that knife from somewhere else. You can't see what he's doing in the car. That knife could have not even been there. The knife could have been in the back seat. The knife could have been on the passenger seat.
No, Dave. No, Dave. Brandon Tatum is not trolling. No, he is not.
And he pulled it over there and put it on his
The Constitution was written before knives existed.
foot. You know, like these things do matter in the totality of circumstances. That's how irrational this guy was in the present danger that the officers were in. Just say that this is a deadly weapon. Just say it was a gun. It's the same premise. Well, he wasn't reaching for the gun, but he got a gun right there that he can pick up and use against the cops. He got a knife he could use against the cops. These things do matter.
And why would anybody grab a weapon and use it against somebody who's breaking out their window and threatening their lives? I don't know why anybody would do that.
Totality of circumstance, when you're evaluating the circumstance, roll it.
Officers lies on the police report, but we'll return to that point in a minute. McNeil was at best passively resisting an unlawful arrest and never attempted to flee. And the severity of the crime was so incredibly low that nearly every officer that responded to the scene was in active violation of the same law McNeil was originally pulled over for. No headlights, no headlights, no headlights. Not to mention that one...
That doesn't matter.
That totally matters. It totally matters because it lifts the veil of law enforcement hypocrisy. Rules for me are rules for thee and not for me. I don't have to follow the rules. I'm above the law. That's how people feel like they can get away with literal murder. Daniel Shaver, Johnny Hurley, James Boyd, Kelly Thomas.
Already said it is exempt. But when it comes to saying that a person is passive aggressive, this guy, the thing that reasonable people in the courts look at is what is the officer's observation of what's happening. If a person is just sitting there like this, that does not mean that they're not a threat. The threat level is that the person is non-compliant for the last X amount of time. When they knock the window out, if the officer want to stun him while they're trying to open the door, that's nothing wrong with that. You can stun the guy to get him disoriented, to get him out back, so you can unlock the door and take care of business without you just sitting there jangling with the door. Hold on, man. You good? Okay. You got a knife or gun in there? You grab it while I'm doing this right here. If an officer believes that, hey, let me stun him real quick, get his, whatever you call it in law enforcement, get his OODA loop off. So he's kind of dazed. And I'm going to do the door and we're going to get this thing done. We're going to pull him out of the car.
Let me stun him real quick. Let me stun this guy who didn't do anything wrong, but he didn't have his headlights on when he was supposed to, even though he really wasn't supposed to have his headlights on according to their own law. This guy, it's so convoluted. It's so messed up. It's so tyrannical. It's so violent.
Also can deem that that's necessary to execute an arrest. When you've never done this before and you don't know the height, suspicion, and things that go on like this, you would be like, oh, you just did it for no reason. Well, the courts evaluated and they didn't agree with you. Well, not the courts, but at least the prosecutor's office, they didn't agree with you. Roll the clip.
Once the door was opened and he was ordered out of the vehicle, McNeil responded with, all right.
You know what? Let me say this. Prosecutors and attorneys and the legal system, I want you to really think about this. Acquitted Philip Brailsford for, in broad daylight, on camera, ending the life of Daniel Shaver in the hallway of that La Quinta Inn. Daniel Shaver was unarmed. Daniel Shaver was trying to comply. He was doing everything that you would think that an American can do to escape the violence of the state. I'm doing exactly what you're telling. And Daniel Shaver didn't even do anything wrong for the cops to initially be there. But they acquitted him. Philip Brailsford was acquitted. Was that right? Absolutely not. I don't know what Brandon Tatum thinks about that, but he's probably in the corner of Philip Brailsford and probably applauded what he did, and would probably say if I was in that same situation, I would have done the same thing too, because it looked like he was going to his waistband to me.
Step out.
Yeah, so that's an example of the court system calling an actual murder not a murder.
They said, first of all, he's resisting. They told him to get out 7 or 8 times already. He said, he not. They break the window out, get out of the car. He refused. He got the doors locked. He's not opening the door. They had to knock the window out to get him out. Then they had to open the door and pull the seatbelt off of him to get him out. And people say he had a seatbelt. No, he put the seatbelt on during this traffic stop to cause this problem. Right?
He doesn't even know that. There's no evidence for that. He's just saying stuff. He's just throwing stuff out there, seeing if it'll stick.
Because then they can't just pull him out. They got to undo the seatbelt and all that. He refused to get out. Then when they go to pull him out, he go, okay. But then he says, they go, put your hands behind your back. He said, no, don't touch me. He said, no, don't touch. He's holding his arms, resisting arrest. And this guy saying he was compliant. No, he wasn't. Roll it.
All right. And likely would have allowed the deputies to remove him, cuff him, and put him in a cruiser. But instead, 3 deputies pulled him in opposite directions while they punched him and threw him to the ground. In fact, when viewing the body cam frame by frame,
because he was resisting. That's what we do with somebody who's resisting. I mean, it was a freaking headlight violation, man. We got to take this guy. We got to pull out all the stops. We got to do what we have to do to bring him to bear.
McNeil can be seen putting his hands behind his back before saying, no, don't punch me.
Hold on. Listen to this guy. He said, McNeil said, no, don't punch me. Where does he get no, don't punch me?
Where do you get inclement weather? Where do you get after the rain? Where do you get this is a legitimate traffic stop? Where do you get that he was wearing his seatbelt? Where do you get off saying that cops, I just believe everything cops and the prosecuting attorney says?
If a guy is wrestling with the cops, he's not saying, no, don't punch me when nobody punched him. He's saying, don't touch me. He's telling them, don't touch me. And this guy is saying that he said,
Isn't it really a matter of semantics? I mean, if you tell somebody not to touch you, does that include don't punch me? I mean, like, don't touch me in any way. Don't touch me like this. Don't touch me with a strike. It's amazing that he'll go into serious detail about something that's completely, up in the air as far as semantics is concerned, but he won't look at the actual text of the actual 316.217 code where it says during driving, during rain.
Don't punch me. The transcript that was put into the video associated with the body worn camera has don't touch me. I hear him say, don't touch me. Why would this guy say that he said don't punch me? It's the craziest thing ever. Roll the clip.
It's the craziest thing ever to make a big deal about that.
They forced his arms behind his back.
But despite Neil saying don't
time out, they forced his arms behind his back. And just because they got his arm here, he's still resisting. He's not here with his arms behind his back. He's resisting and they're pulling his arms behind his back. He's not complying. Complying would be as soon as he got the car. No, he said, no, don't touch me. And then they pulled it and one hit him in the face. Like they had to wrestle this guy to the ground. He's looking for a payday, clearly. He wants to fight. He wants to get it out so he can say, oh, they abused me and I want a payday. Roll the clip.
Punch me.
No, don't touch me. Stop it. Go back a little bit, Nick. All right, right there.
Now it does say here, I'm going to slow this down because we're listening at 125. It does sound like he says, don't touch me. Let's see.
I want to play the little words in this guy's video. Play it. No. Watch this. Pause. Even in this guy's own notes on the side, when she added, don't punch me, he say, no. They're saying, put your hands behind your back. No. He's saying, no. He's resisting. Don't touch me. That's what he's saying. He's resisting. He didn't get out and comply. He didn't get out and say, okay, officers, I'm giving up. Here, I'm putting my hand behind the back. He gets out and stands up and said, don't touch me. And he's resisting. And it takes 3 or 4 officers to force his hands behind his back. And he would still be standing up fighting him if the officer didn't check him on the chin, which that officer believed that utilizing that level of force.
Yeah, I've asked Brandon Tatum to come on the show. I even sent him a super chat to get it, and he read it, and he's not interested. Yeah, Minnesota, we dealt with that at the very beginning. We gave an example of how he defends the Uvalde cops.
Is what executes the arrest. And did it or did it not? He was fighting. He was standing up. They're trying to get his arms behind his back. When he hit him on the chin, that's when he complied and went down to the ground passively. He still wasn't putting his hands behind his back where they can handcuff. All this is happening in seconds. Now, people who prosecute this stuff and people who are reasonable understand how this stuff happens in seconds. There's a slight delay, right? Meaning that don't do this and the guy says boom. He could be doing boom while they finally got his arm here. This stuff is happening in seconds. So a prosecutor is not going to look at this and say, well, technically, if you look at the 1/100,000th of a second, he kind of punched him as his arm was going back. So technically, his arm is back and his fist is here, right on his, hit his beard, hit a little string of hair on his chin. Technically, it contacted his body at the 1/1000 millionth of a second. And then in his mind, he was thinking about complying, so the officer was wrong. Nobody's thinking about that. These things are happening, and they give leeway to officers on the circumstances and how fast things are moving.
People are asking who Brandon Tatum is. He's a conservative commentator. He's a former Tucson police officer, and he's very popular. He's coming up on 4 million subscribers, and he's got a large platform, a large voice, and he's coming out against Lackluster on his commentary on the Will McCain video.
Roll the clip. Once he hit him, he went down.
Clerk added subtitles that read, "Don't touch me."
No, don't touch me.
Seconds
Don't touch
before
me.
being punched a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh time.
I'm resisting.
So stop right there. This dude has a problem with the punches in the thighs. First of all, that's not the same officer. The responding officer back there was punching him in the thighs to get him to comply, to put his hands behind his back, fully compliant. It's not compliant because your hands are not here anymore. It's not compliant when your hands are here. It's not compliant when your hands are here.
Think about the psychopathy of Brandon Tatum on this. He's basically saying you are not compliant. You committed the grave atrocity of not having your headlights on when you shouldn't have had to have your headlights on, and you're not complying to our authority. It's just sick. It's a sick mentality.
It's not compliant when your hands are here. It's compliant when your hands are where the officer wants your hands so he can put the handcuffs on. Just because your hands are near your back doesn't mean that you've complied. So officers hitting him in reasonable leg strikes to get him to comply fully with their commands to put your hands behind your back so that they can handcuff him. And this guy is not on the ground with him, so they don't know the level of resistance that he's putting up against the officers. You can't see it. You're not there. You're not physically on this guy. If he was not resisting, it would have taken one officer to put his hands on his back. But all these officers had to jump on him. One had to punch him and do all this just to get his hands on his back. And it's not unreasonable for an officer to hit him in the legs to get him to comply. Now,
I mean, it just blows my mind that Brandon Tatum or anybody can look at this and call it reasonable. It is absolutely not reasonable. It could be sitting in a dictionary, a Pictionary of an example of unreasonableness.
if you see him complying and the officer still punching him and beating him and hitting him in the face, then we'll have a different scenario. The officer's punching him in the legs. Once he feel like the guy has fully complied, he stopped punching his legs. That's reasonable. He wasn't punching him in the face. He wasn't trying to elbow him in the spine. He was punching him in the thighs to get him to comply. Reasonable use of force based on the officer's belief that they're doing what they need to do to execute an arrest. It's simple, man. Roll the clip.
Same clerk added officer unintelligible when the officer yells clearly, "Stop fighting," before punching McNeil in the legs and lower body several times, though McNeil already had his hands behind his back despite being punched.
Time out. He don't have the right hand behind his back. The officer is pulling
Whose hand is that right there? Whose hand is that right there?
his left hand behind his back. His right hand is not connected to his left hand. His hands are not behind his back like this. One is halfway behind his back being pulled by one officer. The other one is not even behind his back. It's kind of hanging out to the side because he's resisting. What do you mean his hands are behind his back? Because you see one arm that had to be forced back there. You're saying his hands are no, one arm is forced back there. The other one is not even connected where you could put handcuffs on it. It's still hanging off to the side over there. His hands are not behind his back. Roll it.
Face twice, thrown to the ground, and having his face mashed into the pavement. After the incident, Deputy Bowers wrote in his incident report, the suspect was reaching for the floorboard of the vehicle where a large knife was sitting. This was obviously written to obfuscate the truth, so idiots like Tatum would point and say, "See, had knife," and to justify what he already knew was excessive force.
Not one time, and I'm gonna be done with it now because it's pointless. I've already debunked everything he said in this video. No, it's more.
He totally didn't debunk anything. He actually, if he did anything, he dug his hole even deeper than Lackluster had already dug it.
More, but not one time did anybody say that any justification was even argued because he had a knife in the car. People only brought up the knife, including the sheriff, was simply because they're explaining the totality of the danger in this situation. The guy's literally resisting arrest for several minutes, shutting the door, locking the door, and doing all that, and he has a knife on the floorboard. This guy which is a deadly.
Let me just modify that. Clearly resisting unlawful arrest.
Weapon in close proximity to him, but that doesn't have nothing to do with anything else because nobody argued that. I didn't argue it in my op-ed. The sheriff didn't argue it. Nobody's arguing that they did this because he had a knife. They're just explaining that this guy had a weapon in close proximity. And I don't know what the officer saw. I wasn't there. They the ones undoing the thing. They could undo the thing and see the knife right there. They may not want to draw attention to the knife because they don't want him to grab the knife. I don't know. But you weren't there. You're going to have an uphill battle to try to argue that the officer did see or didn't see something when he was right there. You're not going to win that in court. The officer can say, yeah, I saw it, but I didn't want to say nothing because I didn't want him to grab the knife. I didn't want to draw attention to it. The officer can say whatever you want to say. The fact that you're not there, you don't.
Yeah, the officer can say whatever he wants to say, and often they do say whatever they want to say. You remember when, I can't remember his first name, Izzo, Officer Izzo, former Officer Izzo. Remember when I did that live stream where he was talking to the other cop and they both admitted that they've lied on reports before and that they've written tickets for people who displayed a bad attitude and weren't exactly as compliant as they should have been? They both admitted that. Do you think that's not epidemic in police departments? Do you think it's not epidemic that they lie all the time so that they can gain ground against the rest of us? That's what the thin blue line is for. It's a line of division between us and them. And they want to make sure that you know that they have more power than you and they don't have to follow the rules that they're going to get you for.
I don't know what they saw and what they were feeling.
Dominic Izzo, thanks.
And what their justification was. It's really according to what they said, and the limited body worn camera can give you insight in part to what they thought, saw, and feel, and the reason why they reacted the way they did. But here's another, it goes a little further, and I'm gonna finish it here. Roll it.
Face it, if the officer didn't know that it was excessive force, why lie about it in the report?
Soon after McNeil was outside his car, officers found a large, unsheathed serrated knife on the driver's side floorboard.
But the fact is, the deputy knew that the incident was being recorded from inside the vehicle, which clearly showed that McNeil never even so much as glanced towards the knife.
Pause. This is exactly rebutting his own point. The officer knew McNeil was recording. He had his own body worn camera recording. Now, why would you think an officer would tell a complete lie when he know the guy's recording it? He know the guy's recording when he did with the palm strike. He know
that is ridiculous. Cops do things. Cops plant drugs with the body cam rolling. Cops lie to people and then they'll lie to a cameraman out on the street and then go into the bank or the post office and completely lie knowing that they're on camera. A cop will pull a trigger against an innocent man who's trying to comply with his commands on camera, and then the courts will later acquit them. Austin Hopp and Daria Jalali did what they did to Karen Garner on camera. They will do some crazy, crazy stuff on camera. So for Brandon Tatum to go, you think the officer's going to lie about that on camera? Yes, I absolutely do. And we have tons of evidence to show you, but you're not willing to see it. They won't just lie. They will end your life on camera and think that they're completely just in doing that.
The guy's recording that because he said, I'm recording too. So you think the officer knowing
it's almost like I'm listening to somebody who lives on a different planet and has a whole bunch of different experiences than I do when it's the exact same experience looking at it from a different way. Like I said the other day, YouTube's been online for over 20 years now. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of police interactions, most of which show that the cops are doing bad and lying and shooting dogs and killing people and breaking into houses and stealing people's stuff. Remember that one cop who stole that, what was it, $600 from that guy, or 6,000? I don't know what it was, but he had the money in his pocket the whole time and he was completely swearing up and down that it wasn't him. He did it on camera.
That video evidence is there, knowing his body wearing camera evidence is there, and you think he's gonna just make up a lie? When the officer
yes, I don't think he's gonna make up a lie. I know he'll make up a lie.
Body worn camera.
He's got coverage. He's got coverage back at the station. The thin blue line's going to cover for him.
off, you load it onto a dock. That dock is downloaded by a third-party company that makes hundreds of millions of dollars storing footage of body-worn camera. I wish I'd have came out with that job. But cops can't review it. There's no video, there's no computers and stuff typically. Now, I don't know what technology has come to today, but when we were there, the body-worn camera just came out, and guys used to take their body-worn camera, put it on a dock in the briefing room where they charge, and when you put it on the charger, it downloads to a third-party company that we don't have access to unless before you request it. Not for you request it, but we have to request the footage. And then the footage don't go to you, it go to the records department. The cop don't get it. It goes to the records department. And then it's, I don't know how many hours of footage that's on there. And it's available to the public. Anyway, I want to hit this last point and I'm done. Roll it.
Man, Brandon. Man.
I want to get to the Tyre Nichols thing and then we can be done with this. Yeah, let's get to it. So he just says all this stuff that's pointless. Talk about compliance, whatever. Then he gets to this part. Play it.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you comply, you won't die. It's as simple as that. Funny, he said the same thing about the murder of Tyre Nichols, who was beat to death by several cops while laying motionless in handcuffs.
He didn't comply. He did. I made the video and said the officers were wrong anyway. This guy's, he don't even watch the videos he's talking about. I made a video saying the officers wrong and they deserve to go to jail and all this other stuff, which they did. And they beat the guy and some of them end up.
So what Brandon, okay, so taking what he said, let's just give Brandon Tatum the benefit of the doubt. And let's say that he's saying that what the officers did was wrong. Brandon Tatum is promoting the idea that we in America, in order to retain our freedoms, need to comply with those that are doing wrong. We need to comply with the tyrant. We need to comply with the criminal. That's what he just said. As long as they're a badge criminal, you got to lay down. You got to roll over. You got to comply. Did officers' use of force report include the punch thrown through the window? No, I don't think it did. I don't think it did.
Being responsible for killing him, the others were responsible for other crimes that they were charged with. Nobody's taking.
Yeah, it's called accessory to murder. They were all accomplices. Not one of those cops. It's another example of no good cops arriving on the scene to help Tyre Nichols. Not one cop stood up and go, dude, this is wrong. This is not the way my parents taught me. But they lose their humanity. They forget about what their parents taught them, if their parents taught them the right way. But when they put on that uniform, they lose their humanity.
For them, nobody supporting these.
It's almost like that Spider-Man thing where remember that black goop enveloped Spider-Man and he became a different person? That's what happens when you put on that uniform. It's that black goop that darkens your heart and affects your whole being to the point where you can justify some serious vile actions against your fellow human being. Because you're a police officer now, you have exemptions.
Officers, whatever the case may be. But he didn't comply. That's how he got.
Yeah, it was it's Venom, but there was remember it was dark Spider-Man and was that Venom? I don't know. It seemed like Spider-Man had some black goop in it too, and it became dark Spider-Man and white Spider-Man. I mean, the regular Spider-Man. I don't know.
From his car to under a street light down the street because he fought the officers at the car. Then he ran and fought with the officers under the street light. They just so happened to use excessive force against him. What do you mean comply? He didn't comply. They think compliance is I fight you until I start losing, and then no, that's not how it works. Compliance is that you're under arrest. Get out the car. Yes, sir. Get out the car. For you to get in a foot pursuit with the police, you're not complying. Tyre Nichols will still be alive. I put my life on all these situations. Tyre Nichols will still be alive if he had gotten out of the car and got arrested like a normal person.
What?
Instead of fighting the officers, running, he escaped them. They fought him. He escaped them and ran.
Well, it was a jump out crew. He wasn't even pulled over in the right way. It was a blacked out vehicle. All these guys jumped out on him, freaked out Tyre Nichols. It wasn't even a legit traffic stop. What is he talking about? Tyre Nichols thought he was being attacked by somebody, not the police. They didn't even have uniforms on. You couldn't see in the vehicle. He thought he was being harassed.
And they chased him. He didn't just get out the car and juke. They were fighting. He was fighting them back and wiggling and hitting, and then he escaped and they ran him down.
Hold on one second. I gotta put. Am I misremembering this? Describe. Let's see. Fatally beaten by 5 black Memphis Police Department officers from the Scorpion Unit. On January 7, 2023, following a traffic stop in Memphis. So was it a traffic stop? The officers pulled Nichols over for alleged reckless driving, though the Memphis police chief later stated that there was no evidence to substantiate this claim. The police chief, okay, so it wasn't even a legitimate traffic stop. You can call it a traffic stop, but it's not legitimate if the police chief comes out and says, well, there's no evidence to substantiate that he was actually driving recklessly. During the encounter, officers forcibly removed Nichols from his vehicle, pepper sprayed and tasered him. Nichols fled on foot toward his own mother's house less than a mile away, but was apprehended near the house. The officers then punched, kicked, pepper sprayed, and stuck him with the baton. Nichols called out to his mother during the beating, which lasted about 3 minutes. So brutal, man. So brutal. Did not appear to fight back. Okay, so it wasn't even a legitimate traffic stop. So what he's saying here is, hey, comply. Even if it's not a legitimate traffic stop, hey, comply. Take it up in court later. That wasn't the intent or the understanding or the actions of the revolutionaries back in the 1700s when they had to deal with the redcoats every day. Can you imagine Samuel Adams saying to Benjamin Franklin or any one of the founding fathers, Thomas Paine, hey, when the redcoats come around, if they start harassing you, asking you for your papers, just comply. If they raise the tax on our tea from 3 to 6% or whatever, just comply. If they write a law that says, hey, you can't have muskets, but the redcoats can, just comply. We're just going to comply ourselves and do a concentration camp.
So, and then they use excessive force. But if he would have just stopped and got out the car, he'd still be alive. I just had to go point by point on this.
How about if they just didn't stop him? How about we get rid of corporate traffic law? Somebody was saying, hey, what's the answer, Brian? The answer is us rising up and look at the real problem here. The problem is we've given cops a get out of prison free card, and you can abuse and molest and violate and harm us all you want card in corporate traffic law. What nobody's talking about is, power tripping is bad enough. But when you put another tool in the arsenal of the power tripper so that he can use it to justify his encroachment and infringement on your freedoms and your life, we got some serious issues we got to talk about.
Yeah, it's irrational for people to act and be like this.
It's irrational for people to be like this, says the guy who supports the violent actions against another guy who isn't violent with anybody else.
The facts are there. You can hate the police all you want, but you got to go off the law. That's why people get their butt hurt when officers don't get charged. It's like, yeah, because you're not following the law. The law says a cop can do this, this, and this.
No, the cop wasn't following the law. It says during rain, smoke, or fog, Brandon.
In reason. The law says a cop can shoot you if you do X, Y, Z. The use of force policy says this. If you read the policy and if you looked at the law in the state, you will see that there is no problem with what the officer did. That's why he was acquitted.
If you look at the law, you come to the exact opposite of conclusion of what Brandon Tatum is saying here.
And if you were reasonable, you wouldn't be shocked. You'd be like, yeah, I see, according to the law.
So that's Brandon Tatum trying to lash out at Lackluster. And basically, he picked up a shovel and he just started digging and digging and digging. And for 35 minutes, he dug a deeper hole than him just being a bootlicking moron. He doubled down on being a bootlicking moron. And let me just remind you guys, who Brandon Tatum is and what Brandon Tatum thinks. This is him responding to a law enforcement officer, Brian Fowle from Rancho Cordova Police Department, saying that it's okay for a grown man to get on top of a 14-year-old stick figure kid and just start beating him.
Curbside justice, it doesn't work. You will lose every time. And that's my personal experience, because every time somebody wanted to do courtside justice with B. Tatum, they lost miserably. And at some point, the cop had to soften him up a little bit, hit him in this area right here to end up getting control while he wait for his backup. You ask me, I have no problem with that.
You ask me, I have no problem with that.
And that's who Brandon Tatum is. So, in my opinion, Lackluster was spot on by calling him a tyrannical, bootlicking moron, because that's exactly what Brandon Tatum showed himself to be. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comment section below. Before we go, we're going to do some shout outs on some super chats. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Josh. William, I already read that. Mike Cucumber, Jamie again, Mike again, William, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Check out his channel. The Joker says, power to all freedom-loving freedom fighters. Tim says, if I'm on a jury and the cop is a defendant, he's guilty of violating his rights point blank. Tatum is way off on this one. There's no need for this amount of violence to get him in handcuffs. Totally agree. And you know, more normal, moral people will agree with you. And normal, moral people will disagree with Brandon Tatum. Let me show you this. While we're here, let me get that off the screen. Check out, if you, let me go ahead and refresh Lackluster's video, because a lot of Brandon Tatum sycophants are going in there. This dude knows nothing about law. You're reaching, bro. This is your typical jailhouse attorney that always loses. You're just fanning the flames to get people riled up, talking about Lackluster. Let's see. I was reading some earlier. There was just post after post. I'm with Brandon Tatum. Your argument makes no sense. You show only part of the law. You don't realize how the law works. You actually sound like you only use Google and took parts that agree with your side of the argument. Guys, I have eyes in my head, and you do too. And what you saw is what it really was. Unjustified use of force on an unlawful traffic stop, and everybody ran code 3 to get there, putting a whole lot of lives in danger. Tatum clearly doesn't know use of force continuum. Did the officer's use of force report? Okay, yeah, I think I covered all the super chats. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Please hit that like button right now if you got something out of this video. If you disagree with anything I said, leave it in the comment section below. Share this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification icon so you can be alerted to some more content when I upload it. I upload at least 1, sometimes 2 videos a day. Appreciate you guys being here. Also, check out my Disturbing Illusion channel. This is the channel that I use to expose the left versus right paradigm lie. And we got some things heating up over there. So I appreciate you guys. Let's see. I said I was going to, oh yeah, let me give you the links. Let me put the links in the chat here. Here's the link to the Disturbing Illusion. Here is the link to the Florida State Statute 316-217 so that you can look that up for yourself, come to your own conclusion. This is the Brandon Tatum video. If you want to see the Brandon Tatum video to end all Brandon Tatum videos, this is where he backed the cowardice of the Uvalde Police Department as they stood down for 77 seconds. Here's him supporting what the officers did to Tyre Nichols because he didn't consent. Oh, you'll want to watch this short right here. This is the short where he says that Benjamin Crump is a criminal, but that's the type of attorney that they need supporting the police so that we can get a fair shake, we being the police, because he's an ex-cop. This right here is, this right here is where Brandon Tatum wanted to initiate violence on a guy who flipped him off for having a thin blue line flag displayed in the back of his truck. And there's him this is him trying to talk himself into the good graces of his audience. Appreciate you guys. Remember, the price of freedom is now and will always be eternal vigilance, and indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Let's stop securing our own oppression, and let's start today. I will see you guys in the next video.